Given the recent developments and the conflict in Ukraine, the latest measures adopted by NATO countries, and the setbacks in talks between Kiev and Moscow, some questions arise, yet they are not addressed by the political elite, not their watchdog emissaries. Here to offer some insight into this issue is political analyst. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I would like to begin asking you several questions. So the first one is, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been marked by intermittence in negotiations. There was a time when both parties hinted at some progress made in talks, but then Ukraine pulled back on claims of serious violations, for example, regarding the Bucha events that still lack an impartial and thorough investigation. What, with this magnitude and severity, who could possibly gain anything from prolonging a conflict like this?
Thank you so much for having me again. Ukraine, since the beginning of this conflict, since the Maidan, Ukraine have never been serious on this issue. Russia shared its huge security concern regarding the genocide of its Russian-speaking population in the Lugansk and Donetsk Republic. So it was a big issue. Russian president has been highlighting, and Russian security circle have been talking about this issue. But Ukraine was not serious, and it led to the big conflict, like a bigger scenario we have seen, like the Russia attacked, went for a special military operation in Ukraine in order to denazify the country. So what happened recently, we have seen a recent development 2 days ago, the Russians captured the Mariupol. So it was a greatest victory in the region, because right now the Russian target is just the Donbas region, because the Donbas region is key strategic for its Western geographical security. So the Ukraine is not serious, and who is just prolonging this conflict? We know, the big problem. NATO is just arming Ukraine and neo-Nazi battalions in Ukraine. This is the biggest problem within the Russian security circles. So the Russian doesn't want to attack the Ukraine, or it doesn't want to attack the Kyiv, or doesn't want to attack the Ukrainian people. It's attacking the neo-Nazi battalion, which are a threat, supported and armed by the CIA and the Americans, since 2014. So they got this opportunity, and they trained them, armed them, and they have tried to use them against Russia. So right now we have seen the Istanbul summit. The Istanbul summit have been a little bit successful, but the Ukrainian government is not serious about it. The NATO is still supplying the money. They're still imposing the sanctions as Russia. And let me tell you, how you can be serious on such an issue when your partners are not, the counterparts are not so much serious about this issue. The Americans and the Europeans doesn't seem serious about this issue. They want to prolong this conflict because America is benefiting from it. Because the major purpose of this particular war is to throw away Europe from the Russian security circle, Russian energy circle. So it did. The America is now trying to leverage the European defense policy and security policy in this particular conflict.
The United Nations have discussed the conflict between Russia and Ukraine several times, and on each and every single occasion the truth spins one way. It's Russia who gets sanctioned and questioned regarding its acts. However, when Moscow presents evidence and talks of the violations that were committed in the Donbas for the past 8 years, and when the Russian delegation addresses the bioweapons labs their commands have found on Ukrainian soil, this is dismissed or hardly even taken into account when it comes to making decisions and finding those responsible. What does this one-sided tendency indicate in terms of world politics?
This is too much. The United Nations is not an international organization now. It has become the puppet of the America and its allies. We have seen this. There's too much bigotry. When it comes to the Russia and its security concerns. There is a Russophobic campaign launched by the Western media, mainstream media. So the United Nations supports that particular anti-Russian, anti-Russophobic hysteria, and it has tried to press Russia. It has supported the United Nations, even supported sanctions imposed by the West without taking into account the real issue, what was going on there. And regarding this biolabs, it was available on the United States embassy website. They were working on this multi-million project, which they have spent on some biological activities in Ukraine. And Russia knew this from the very beginning, and Russia shouted many times. And even China raised this issue many times, but Americans didn't care about it. And when this special military operation began, everything came up. Russia got the documents of some biological activities, which is strictly prohibited under the United Nations under the biological conventions, which America was violating in the foreign soil. And why the is not taking action on this? This is strange. The United Nations has said nothing about the biolabs, though Russia has showed many evidence. The only thing the United Nations focuses on what was going on in Kiev and what Russia was doing there. Are you getting me? Like showing some children and the whole Ukrainian sponsored propaganda. That's it. This was the biggest bigotry we have ever seen in the modern history, and this is a serious problem. Like we have to think about the United Nations, the restructuring of the United Nations, because it's not serving all the countries, and it's not even recognizing like the countries of global south as the part of the international community. And we have seen this in case of Iraq, we have seen this in the case of Afghanistan, we have seen this in case of Libya, and right now of like Russia. This is too much.
We're already aware of the impact the conflict has on the national economies, but also on geopolitics. On the first take, countries that depend on Russian gas are struggling to find alternatives. And on the second instance, since we see countries like Finland and Sweden bidding for a seat in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's ranks, given the rise in tensions in Europe, could this be something favorable to the United States, since they have been an essential part in the heightening of the conflict, although watching from the sidelines every development?
Yeah, it's obvious. Like if we like see 2 days ago, Vladimir Putin said like the Russian the Western countries impose sanction on Russia, but the real result were the Western countries, especially the Euro, which is highly dependent on for gas and hydrocarbons on Russia. 40% to 50% of the hydrocarbons imports are going from Russia, going into Europe from Russia. So Russia, they need Russia. Russia doesn't need them because they are highly dependent on them. If they want to build the alternative pipelines, like if they want to import oil or gas from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or any other alternative for America, like the building of those new pipelines will take around 1 decade, more than 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. Nobody knows. Like for 15 years, can the Europe survive without hydrocarbons? I don't think so. So they need Russia. They cannot they have realized this, the sanctions are not working because initially what happened, the Russian ruble, it slumped. And it reached like 130 lowest in history, in recent history. But suddenly it recovered, and it recovered to the pre-war levels. So now it's really hurting the Europeans. Like what happened actually? Their strategy, their sanction strategy, their economic sanction strategy, embargo strategy didn't work. So now they have pushed a new strategy. Like they have propelled Finland and Sweden like to join like the NATO bloc. I don't think so. Like this is going to make any sense. Because Russia has shared, during the heightened, as the tensions are heightening in Ukraine, I don't think so. Like the Finland will take such a bad decision, or the NATO will consider involving Finland into its orbit.
Thank you for joining us, Rahim. We'll follow the events in the region closely. What remains clear, regardless of the interests at stake, is that the longer this fight wages on, the longer it will take for Ukraine to recover from the scars left by the violence. You stay tuned. We'll be right back.